From the author of Spinsterella, The Strange and Unusual Romance and Spellbound, a darker shade of black comes the legendary Mediocre. Pick up the conclusions of the Spinsterella trilogy in paperback and e-readers this Halloween. I was watching the news last night and they were talking about these two black men who were murdered down in Louisiana. One was a 50-something homeless man and the other was a 49-year-old dishwasher. And both of these men were murdered by this 23-year-old white male. And this case fits the profile I've been talking about regarding these mass shooters and these mass murderers out here regarding their behavior. Because when it comes down to these beta males and their behavior, there's a clear pattern and a profile that has been emerging over the last decade or so regarding their behavior. And a lot of people aren't really paying attention to this pattern and this profile regarding their behavior. Now, this 23-year-old white male, his behavior fits right in line with your James Harris Jackson, who decided he wanted to get on a bus and go all the way up to New York to kill black people, and your Dylan Roof, who was down in the Carolinas, who decided he was going to go into a black church to go and murder black people. Now, I look at the behavior of this beta male, and it fits right within the profile. This beta male decided in 2016 he was going to go buy himself a handgun, and then in 2017 he decided he was going to go out and start shooting at black people. First shooting at some homes, then mustering up the courage to go out here and shoot one 50-something homeless man, and then the 49-year-old dishwasher. Fitting right within the profile I've been talking about for years regarding these beta white males and these mass shootings. Whenever these guys don't see life going their way, they decide to go out and have an adult temper tantrum with a pistol. And when it comes down to this guy, he is no different than your James Harris Jackson and your Dylan Roof, looking to project blame on African Americans and say that it was black people who caused all the problems. So he's going to go out here and start murdering black people because his life isn't going the way he expected, because things aren't going the way he wanted to do. And a lot of people in the police department in New Orleans, they tried to hold off and tried to spin it like this guy was some sort of druggie, but that wasn't the case at all, because once they went into his home, they saw propaganda from Adolf Hitler in his home, which showed us all, again, this is yet another one of these beta white males who decides life isn't going the way he expected, he's not getting the privileges a white male is supposed to get, and it's all black people's fault. And I find it odd that in the cases of these guys, they always want to blame black people for all their problems. And they never want to take a look at, one, their white female, or two, look directly in the mirror at the person who causes all their problems. They never want to take responsibility for their own lives and take responsibility for the situation they're in. These guys will sit there and they'll always project all their problems onto black people, but will never take that long, hard look at themselves. Now, I look at these beta white males and I'm seeing this pattern really emerging with these guys about how when life doesn't go their way, they project all their blame on black people and then want to go out and participate in acts of violence against black people. And then when they go out here, they have to get drunk or they have to get high, and then they have to muster up the courage to go out here and attack a black person, and they go out and they seek out the weakest black person they can find. The first person this beta male decides to go shoot is a 50-something homeless man, a man who's completely defenseless. And then he goes out and goes after a 49-year-old dishwasher, a man who's probably struggling to make a living, and he does that because he doesn't have the courage to go face to face with anybody who is on his own level. This is what I saw with Dylan Roof. This is what I saw with James Harris Jackson, that these beta males are complete cowards and they refuse to engage anyone who is on their intellectual level or who can physically engage them on the same level. They always look for a weaker black person to go out and kill. And when they do that, they show us again how cowardly they are and how weak these guys actually are. These guys don't have any backbone and they don't have any stones because they go out and look to engage the weakest black people in the room. They don't want to go out here and confront somebody who can defend themselves because they know that these guys without their 9mm of courage or whatever weapon they have on them, they can't stand up in a fair fight. So they go out here and look for the weakest person they can find. And when it comes down to these beta males, that's all they can do is act out in these temper tantrums because they don't have the character or the resolve to go do something constructive with their own life. Now, if these guys had any sort of character or resolve, they wouldn't be sitting there blaming black people for all their problems. They'd be out here trying to make America great again, like their president, Donald Trump, that they're so far behind. They would be out here trying to build businesses and trying to do things for their so-called white race. They'd be out here trying to build their own businesses and their own infrastructure instead of blaming somebody else. But they don't have the courage for that, nor do they have the discipline or the character to participate in things like starting a business or going out here and trying to do something on their own. No, they would rather sit there reading rhetoric online from many of these racist websites, looking for somebody to blame for all their problems, instead of taking charge of their lives and setting a direction and a course for themselves. This 23-year-old young man had his entire life ahead of him and could have done anything with his life, but he didn't have the backbone, the resolve, or the character to take a look in that mirror and see who the person was who was responsible for him. No, he wanted to blame black people for all his problems. And then, after he took a whole bunch of drugs, he decides, I'm going to go out here and finally muster up enough courage with the help of the drugs of courage and the 9mm of courage to go attack a black person. Again, showing us all the cowardice that these white races truly have and how America will never be great as long as we have a large majority of these beta males in society. Because when it comes down to these beta males do not want to take responsibility for anything. They don't want to take the lead in anything. They only want to be followers, and they do things in the hopes of getting some sort of social currency, but social currency has no value. That's the big problem with this beta male, is that he values social currency over taking action that leads to social change. And because he thinks killing black people will get him social currency with other racists, this is why he's going to be sitting there in a prison for the rest of his life while the rest of the world passes him by. But you can't explain this to many of these white supremacists because they don't follow any sort of logic. They live in the world of emotion, and they live in the world of we need to find somebody to blame, just like their grandfathers and ancestors from the Civil War did, instead of taking responsibility to go out here and build what you need to build and do what you need to do. These guys don't want to do that type of work, so they project all their anger and frustration on black people, but never once want to take a long, hard look at themselves and take a long, hard look at the situation that they're in and try to find a constructive solution towards solving it. No, that actually takes some hard work, and your beta male, like your female, just hates work, because work means he has to actually take responsibility for something, he has to take ownership for something, and he actually has to do something for himself and not have someone else expect to do it for him, and he can't do it for somebody else's approval. That's another big problem with these white beta males. They're always looking for the approval of someone and the attention of someone. So they'll go out here and kill a black man in the hopes of getting attention and approval, and then when it doesn't happen, these guys sit there in prison wondering where they went wrong. And where they went wrong, again, was looking to submit to someone, looking to get attention from someone, looking for approval for someone, and giving their power to someone else. They always want to look at black people, but again, they do not want to look at the mirror, at the person who has caused most of the problems in their lives. They want to talk about making America great again. They'll follow somebody like Donald Trump, but they'll never take the lead in their own lives. That's why these guys are always behind in the world, and that's why they never go anywhere in the world except prison or the graveyard or to a drug rehab like this guy who probably will get in prison. But that's where they usually go, because this is the path that your beta male goes behind, because all he does is follow others and he never takes the lead in his own life. It's a shame that these two black men had to lose their lives due to this coward and his lack of courage, because these black men did not need to lose their lives like this, because this guy just didn't have the courage to take charge of his own life or the conviction or the character to do what he needed to do for himself. No, these black men lost their lives because this guy couldn't be responsible enough for himself to do what he needed to do. So he goes out here and musters up enough courage to kill them because he wants to find somebody to blame for all his problems, and he doesn't want to take responsibility for anything in his own life. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct titles, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.